There's a saying about Texas that rings true. Unlike the rest of the country, there are only two seasons, football season and spring football. When Clark's 2007 season ended, those who returned were determined. Spring training would soon turn to summer weights to two-a-days. Few knew then what would become of the 2008 Cougars, but in each and every soul there was the desire, the grit, the will to be better. What no one knew was how good they would be. What no one could predict about the 2008 Clark Cougars that they would be the best ever.
Being at Clark and being in the Clark community, people expect high things from Clark. You know, they expect big things. We expected big things out of this team because, you know, they are a good bunch of kids, and they had a little bit more talent than the past few years. They had a little bit more size, a little bit more speed.
The traditional start to the season against the Churchill Chargers proved to be an early test for the number 8 ranked team in San Antonio.
The Gucci Bowl is a special game for those kids. You know, you can't really just say it's just another game, because it isn't. It's one of those things where it's a huge rivalry, and those are good games to be into. You know, and to play in that kind of ball game that early, it gets you prepared for playing in the playoffs.
The Chargers struck first on a 37-yard scoring drive in the first quarter. But what would become the identity of the Clark offense the rest of the season? Hayden Greenbauer and Jock Tillman, protected by a massive offensive line, pounded the ball for 74 yards and took 6 minutes off the clock for the first touchdown of the season. Churchill would end the half ahead by a field goal, but each time they scored, Clark battled back, including an 80-yard TD by Tillman.
When we played Churchill, Churchill had an outstanding team. You know, what happened to them was they suffered a bunch of injuries. But when we played them, we played a very good team. And we played close, and you know, we played through adversity. We were down at some points, and you could see the team just building right from then.
The win against Churchill was the first opening season victory in 4 years.
The Alamo Heights Mules take on the Clark Cougars live from Dove Ferris Stadium.
The come-from-behind victory would not be their last. A week later, the Cardiac Cougars would claw their way back to the win column once again. Playing in front of the home crowd for the first time, the Cougars fell behind early as Oklahoma-bound quarterback Drew Allen put 17 points on the board in the second quarter. A 34-yard field goal with no time, ending the first half, would be the first of 24 unanswered points by the Cougars. Aaron Dirk, the senior defensive leader, would not let the Cougars lose.
Campbell's punt is best of the night. Wow, what a time to do it. Lovelady muffs it. He's going to have to run back and get it. Can he do it? I don't know. They're going to be searching for it. Clark may have it.
The result would be the first 2-0 start in 6 years.
And you're down 17 points at half, and they come back. That kind of, you know, that kind of heat, you know, polish that steel that they needed to get better. And I think those two games, you know, being preseason games and everything, they're important, but they're not as important as district games. But the learning experience that these kids got from those two games probably helped shape the rest of the season.
Victories over Brandeis, Stevens, Marshall, and Jay gave the mighty Cougars the best start by a Clark team since 1995. For longtime fans, the tradition that never graduates is back at the top of this class.
Have to love high school football when you see the starting quarterback back deep to return, and that's the case right here. Greenbauer, 3 yards back in his end zone, is going to bring it out. The 10, up to the 20, already is a good decision. 30, one man to get down by the sideline. Hayden Greenbauer, starting quarterback, also specialty on the special teams. It is 103 yards unofficially on the kick return.
An offense that couldn't be stopped, and a defense that allowed less than 8 points a game during that span, and posted the first shutout of the season, gave the Cougars a number 2 ranking in the greater San Antonio area. It also gave the O'Connor Panthers something to respect going into the 7th game of the season.
Well, O'Connor is a lot like the Churchill game. You know, our kids want to win those games. You know, there's certain games on the schedule that mean more to them than other ones. And
always a game that matters. The first half favored the Panthers.
We're not stopping them, and they're scoring, and we're not scoring, and boom, all of a sudden, as happened in more than one of our games this year, right before half, we're able to move down there and regain the momentum right before half, and I think that was a big deal for us that day, as it was against Alamo Heights and some other games. And then the second half, everything just seems to go our way.
Trailing the entire game, the Cougars refused to lose to their bitter Northside District rivals. That effort gave the Cougars a chance to send the game to overtime.
Our shotgun snap. Now he'll look deep to the right. He has a miss. Caught it! He caught it! One-handed grab. I don't believe it. Joe Vasquez, he stuck his right hand out and pulled it in.
The catch is unbelievable at the end, and the two-point play for the conversion is unbelievable at the end. I thought that when we ran the two-point play in for the conversion that there's nothing but silence on both sides.
Motion man. Greenbauer faked it, bootleg right, and he will go in, touchdown. Excellent play. What a call. What a call.
Hayden's standing down there in the end zone. Our kids aren't even running towards him. He's just standing down there by himself. I look over O'Connor's sign, I look up there. We're signing, I thought I'd gone deaf. It's just like.
I think they learned from the earlier games that they could come back and they could fight the adversity, you know. And Joe makes that huge catch, and you know, the defense makes some huge stops, and the offense has some great plays throughout the whole game. And you know, when you get that late in the season, you start doing that, then the kids really start thinking, you know, this may be something special here.
And it's very surreal, but one of the most exciting games I've ever been in my life. That's what I think it will come.
And that kind of set up the rest of the season for us.
Huh, I didn't see it. I had my eyes shut. I didn't see it catch. My wife told me about it later that evening.
The following week, the Cougars would lose their only game of the regular season in a tough battle with Warren, but rolled to victories over Taft and Holmes. The Cougars were back in the playoffs.
Those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name. He doesn't need his name up in lights, he just wants to be heard, whether it's the beat of the mic.
Playing their most complete game of the season, the Cougars sent the Vipers of Victoria Memorial slithering home on their bellies, 49-0. Their next showdown would be against a team that had always stopped Clark in the past.
And welcome to the Alamo Dome. You're listening to State Farm High School football, the Clark Cougars versus the Madison Mavericks.
We had talked to them all through the week that, you know, that there were some teams that Clark has never beaten in the history of, and Madison was one of them. And they took that to task. They took that to heart, that they wanted to be the first team to do things.
It was big, especially I think there was an article in the paper that day or the day before saying, you know, Northside had not done well against them at times in the playoffs, and we made it a personal challenge to try to go out there and win. Not necessarily for the district, but for us, for San Antonio, and we just thought for this team we were going to win.
So far, this defense by the Clark Cougars has been outstanding. Greenbauer's looking to pass and finds his man at the 20-yard line, getting away from the defenders is Eric Campbell, and he will walk into the end zone for a Cougar touchdown. Virgil, Clark is dominating both sides of the line of scrimmage in this game. They sure are right now, I'll tell you what. Greenbauer throws to Campbell at the 11-yard line, shakes off a tackle, looks for the corner of the end zone, and takes it in for a Clark Cougar touchdown.
The Madison game was a huge victory for us, and you know, we were the underdogs that game, and our kids, you know, they just came to the game. Our kids you know, when it really comes down to it, our kids played better than Madison, and our kids executed well.
That victory led to another week in the Alamo Dome against Mission Sherryland. Behind the backup quarterback, the Cougars continued to roll. Beating Sherryland would set up the Cougars' greatest challenge and a chance to avenge an old, familiar foe.
Clark has never beaten Westlake. Clark has never been to the state semifinals.
We felt basically the same thing we felt against Madison, that we matched up with them a lot better than we have in the past. And we felt like if we could control the football and make a few stops on defense and defense come up with some big plays, that we could be in there at the end, you know. And the kids, once again, their focus that week and what they did was tremendous.
It was going to be a battle, and we knew it was going to be a battle.
And once again, the Cougars met the challenge. Against a team to whom the Cougars had always been the underdogs, this time would be different. Filling in for an injured Greenbauer, senior Aaron Dirk guided the offense for the entire game. It would be his defensive efforts, however, on the final Westlake possession at the end of the fourth quarter that would seal the victory and make Clark history.
Price gives it to Swope. Bottled up in the backfield. He's going to throw. Throws to Price. Price is going to be tackled at the 34-yard line. Price back to pass. Here comes pressure. He's still bound. Looking, throws to the sideline. No, he didn't come up with it.
It was big. It was real big. I remember going out to eat afterwards, being with my wife and my kids, and I was excited. We got phone calls from some friends. I'd been in some big games and been a part of some big games. Not necessarily, just me, but I was very excited. That was a huge win for the Clark community, for Clark and Clark coaching staff.
Our kids came through again against a good football team. Of course, you get in the playoffs, every team's good, and they all pose challenges. So our kids did really well there, and it was a big victory for Clark.
For the first time in school history, the Clark Cougars would advance to the Texas 5A state semifinals, sealing their claim to being the best Clark team ever.
What these kids could do really well was they were fighters, and they never gave up, That's what I'll remember more about this team than anything else, how the fighters they were and how they chose to do things right all the time and how they just stuck real close together, They got tighter and tighter, as things got, because after the Warren game, to be quite frank with you, everybody just kind of wrote us off, and said, heck, this was kind of an average team and they just, got lucky and stuff like that. But these kids decided, no, we're not going to be an average team. We're going to get closer, we're going to get tighter, we're going to do better, and we're going to fight harder. I know everybody will think of this team as the greatest team in the history of Clark, which they should, to a certain respect, but I just think of this team as the next step. They've set the bar, the next one higher. I wouldn't expect anything less out of them. And I think I told Gilbert this, it wouldn't have mattered if you were, 2-13 or 13-2. What you guys accomplished and the way you went about it, that's what I'll always remember, more than anything else.